Welcome to the Emotions of Life channel. Like the video, subscribe and enjoy the story. It was a cold morning in Kyiv, and President Volodymyr Zelensky was on his way to a humanitarian mission in a war-torn region. He had become accustomed to the pain and destruction, but this day would be different. Something in the air, in the way people looked at him, seemed to indicate that he was about to experience something unique. When the helicopter landed and he stepped onto the war-tinted ground, the silence was deafening. He was approaching the village, his boots crushing the snow beneath his feet, when a scream cut through the air. Zelensky turned quickly, his eyes searching for the source of the sound. That's when he saw it, a small boy with a torn backpack running desperately between the destroyed houses. The scene was heartbreaking, but what happened next was something he could never have predicted. The boy, eyes wide, suddenly stopped upon seeing him. Instead of running or hiding as Zelensky expected, the boy stared at him intently and with an unsettling calm said, "You can't leave me here. You already know what to do." The president froze. His words made no sense, but the boy's gaze was intense, as though he had seen something that no adult could comprehend. Zelensky, unsure of what to do, took a step forward and the boy, without hesitation, extended his hand. There was something extraordinary in the way he looked at him, as if his words carried a weight that Zelensky couldn't understand. For a moment the president felt disoriented. Who was this boy? How did he know what Zelensky needed to do? Before he could ask anything, the boy simply said, "It's you, isn't it? I knew I'd find you here." The voice, firm and determined, seemed to carry a deep secret, something that Zelensky wasn't ready to hear. Zelensky, unsure of what to think, looked around. The destruction, the pain, the rubble. But at that moment what caught his attention the most was the boy's gaze. He felt that this encounter wasn't a mere coincidence. Something was about to happen and he could no longer ignore it. This boy, with eyes full of mystery, seemed to be the key to a much greater truth than he had imagined. What did the boy know about him? How did he know about his mission? Zelensky could no longer hide from the answer. This encounter, so improbable, was about to change everything. Zelensky didn't know whether to feel fear or curiosity in front of the boy. The child, seemingly unafraid, was not like the other children he had encountered during his visits to refugee camps. While others sought shelter or were guided by survival instinct, this boy had a penetrating look, as though he carried a burden that didn't match his age. "I know who you are," the boy said, his words like a blade that cut through the morning silence. "I know what you're going to do." The president felt a chill run down his spine. He crouched down, trying to look the boy in the eyes, trying to understand the meaning of his words. How did he know what Zelensky would do? It didn't make sense. He wasn't an ordinary child, that was obvious. The boy continued to stare at him, motionless, his expression unchanged, as if he knew something that Zelensky couldn't comprehend. "You think you're here to fix everything," the boy said, his voice serious. "But the truth isn't what you think. You're being guided even without realizing it. And I am the key." Zelensky took a step back, his leader's instinct trying to process what he had just heard. How could someone so young know something so profound about him, his mission, and his life? He looked around, searching for a logical explanation. But all he saw was desolation, rubble, and that boy who seemed so calm and so aware of something far beyond his grasp. The president, trying to understand, asked, "What do you mean? What do you know about me?" The boy didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked into the distance, toward the horizon where the sky met the ruins of the city. He seemed to be observing something invisible, something only he could see. Then, with unsettling calm, he turned and said, "You'll understand soon, but what's going to happen will change everything. The future you plan no longer exists. The game has changed." The boy's words echoed in Zelensky's mind. He wanted to ask more questions, demand more explanations, but he knew the boy wasn't speaking by chance. There was something there, something he still couldn't see but felt deep in his bones. What he didn't know was that this small encounter was about to lead him down a path he never imagined, and the child was somehow the key to everything. Before he could ask more, the boy looked at him with an enigmatic smile and said, "They're watching. You have to be quick. Time is running out." And with that, the boy turned and started walking as if nothing had happened, leaving Zelensky more lost than ever. The mission he thought he knew so well was taking an entirely unexpected turn. Zelensky stood there for a few seconds, the boy's words echoing in his mind. "They're watching. You have to be quick." The sense of urgency the boy had conveyed settled deep in his mind, making him restless. What did he mean? Who was watching? And what exactly was changing? The president looked back at the child, who was calmly walking away among the ruins, and decided to follow him. At first, it seemed like the boy was just walking aimlessly, but there was something curious about his direction. As if he knew exactly where he was going. Zelensky, without hesitation, began following him, once again feeling that this wasn't just a coincidence. The child, though seemingly vulnerable, was leading him somewhere. He didn't know why, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that something big was about to happen. When they reached a small makeshift shelter, the boy stopped in front of an old, rusty door. He opened it without hesitation and turned to Zelensky, saying, "Here. What you're looking for is inside." Zelensky hesitated. He knew he should have trusted his instinct and left, but something about the boy made him feel that this was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. With a sigh, he entered. The space was poorly lit, but enough to reveal a large map spread across a wooden table. There were handwritten notes, drawings, and red markers scattered everywhere. "This is the map you need to save Ukraine," the boy said with impressive seriousness. "But it's not just about the war. It's about something much bigger. You're not just a leader, you're a piece in a much bigger game." Zelensky felt a chill down his spine. He looked at the map more closely. There were strange markings indicating important locations, many of which he had never heard of. What surprised him the most, however, were the words written in large letters in one corner of the map. "The fate is sealed." "You'll understand soon," the boy continued, his eyes fixed on the president. "Everything you need to know is here. But to discover the truth, you need to trust me. The war is not your greatest enemy." Zelensky looked at the boy, who now seemed much older than his childlike appearance suggested. Something in his voice, something in his eyes, was making everything feel more real and more urgent than ever. But what he didn't know was that this child, with his enigmatic words and gestures, was more than just a guide. He was about to be thrust into a conspiracy of unimaginable proportions. Before he could ask more, the boy pointed to one of the locations on the map, saying, "You need to go there now. The answers are waiting for you." Zelensky didn't know if he was ready to face that, but he knew he had no choice. Something inside him told him that, somehow, this meeting was not random, that the truth about his destiny was finally about to be revealed. And deep down he knew nothing would ever be the same after that day. Zelensky stood in silence for a moment, looking at the boy with a mixture of disbelief and growing concern. The sense of urgency surrounding him was almost palpable, as if time were running out. The war, which had always been his main concern, now seemed to be just a part of something much bigger. Something he didn't fully understand but felt was about to be unraveled. The boy, noticing Zelensky's silence, stepped forward and placed his hand on the map, pressing it lightly. "The fate you know no longer exists," he said again, his voice firm. "The choices you make now will shape the future, but not just the future of your country. This affects the entire world. Remember, you are not just fighting against armies. There is something much darker and more powerful that you haven't seen yet." Zelensky swallowed hard, trying to process the boy's cryptic words. He felt that he was on the brink of discovering a truth that would change everything, but the magnitude of what the boy was saying left him speechless. "What is happening, boy? What do you mean by that?" He felt a mix of anger and despair. How could someone so young carry such a burden? What did he know that Zelensky didn't? "You are being manipulated," the boy answered, as if he knew what the president was thinking. "But you have the key. The map will guide you, but it's not enough to just follow the path. You need to understand what is happening in your heart." Zelensky felt his heart beat faster, a weight growing in his chest. He looked again at the map. The marks and annotations, seemingly meaningless, were starting to appear more important than he had ever imagined. Where were the indicated locations? What did they represent? He didn't know, but he knew he had to go. He had to do something. But the feeling of being on an irreversible path deeply unsettled him. "What is this?" Zelensky asked, pointing to a specific spot on the map. It was an isolated area, a small village in eastern Ukraine with a red circle around it. "There lies the key to everything," the boy said, his voice heavy with an unusual weight. "You will find the truth, but be careful. Many will try to stop you. Don't be deceived by appearances." The president looked at the boy with new understanding. This was no casual encounter. The boy was offering him more than just a geographical direction. He was giving him a warning. Something big was at stake, and Zelensky found himself with no options. He would have to follow what the boy told him, even if the words were incomplete, fragmented. The truth was waiting somewhere. The war, the choices he had made up until now, everything was becoming part of something much bigger than he could imagine. With a heavy sigh, Zelensky stood up and looked around. The silence was more oppressive than ever, as if the very air was holding back the answer he sought. "I will," he said with determination. I will find out what's happening. For you. The boy looked directly at him, his eyes shining with a wisdom that seemed beyond his age. It's not for me, the boy replied. It's for everyone. And when you get there, there will be no turning back. The truth will be revealed, but you will have to be ready to face the consequences. Zelensky took one last look around the shelter, feeling more lost and at the same time, more directed than ever. He followed the boy to the door, his words echoing in his mind, "The game has changed. The fate is sealed." Now, more than ever, he knew his mission was no longer about war. It was about uncovering a secret much deeper and greater than him. The truth he sought was beyond the ruins of Ukraine. It was at the heart of a global conspiracy, and he was a key player in this game. The whole world was watching and time was running out. Zelensky took a deep breath and followed the boy out of the shelter, aware that his life was about to change forever. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Zelensky walked behind the boy, his footsteps echoing amidst the silence of destruction. The path was clear now, even though the boy's words continued to resonate in his mind like an unsolvable riddle. With every step, he felt the pressure of his destiny growing, as if he were being pulled toward something he didn't fully understand. The boy, with his serene posture and penetrating gaze, seemed to be the only one who knew what was happening. And Zelensky now had no choice but to trust him. They quickly reached the point indicated on the map. The village was hidden among devastated mountains, isolated from the rest of the world. The houses, once again, were in ruins, but there was something different about this place. The atmosphere seemed dense, as if the very air was charged with secrets buried long ago. The wind cut through the landscape, and the silence was only interrupted by the sound of Zelensky's footsteps and the boys ahead, who seemed unconcerned with the desolation around them. The president looked around, trying to make sense of everything. Where were the answers? What was he looking for? It was impossible to know, but he felt that the truth was waiting for him there, somewhere among the ruins. The boy stopped in front of an old building, a ruined church, marked by time and the destruction of war. He looked at Zelensky with an enigmatic smile and said, with an unsettling calmness, "This is where you'll find what you need. But don't go in yet. You have to understand something first." Zelensky stopped beside him, feeling a chill run down his spine. "What do I need to understand?" he asked, his voice heavy with impatience. He was starting to question whether this encounter had more to do with manipulation than with revelation. "What's behind all of this is not just what you see," the boy replied, still with the same calmness. "The war is just a reflection of something bigger. The manipulation is not in the hands of those you think. You're being guided by something or someone, but the key to defeating this is within you." Zelensky felt the weight of the boy's words. The war, which he believed to be his greatest enemy, was not what it seemed. There was something behind it, something even deeper, and he was a central piece in this game. But what was this hidden force? And how could he defeat it? "I don't understand," Zelensky said, frustrated. "What are you saying? Who is manipulating the war? Who is behind this?" The boy looked at him with a somber seriousness. "You have to go into the church. The answers are there. But remember, what you see will not be what you expect. You need to be ready to accept the truth." With that, the boy stepped aside, walking to the side, and Zelensky was left standing there, alone in front of the church. The deteriorating structure seemed to swallow the light around it, a mysterious shadow hanging over it. What was he about to find? He wasn't sure of anything anymore. But there was no time to hesitate. He took a deep breath and crossed the threshold of the church, stepping into the darkness. Inside, the air was thick and heavy, as if the very space was laden with secrets. His heart beat fast as he walked, his footsteps echoing in the empty walls. The church, despite its crumbling state, still had a sense of sacredness. He looked at the altar, where a table was covered with extinguished candles, and a feeling of something lost in time overwhelmed him. The boy's voice echoed in his mind, "What you see will not be what you expect." Zelensky approached the altar, and that's when he noticed something peculiar. There was a large, irregularly shaped stone placed next to the altar. The stone appeared to have been molded, but in a handcrafted way, as if someone had carved it carefully. On top of it was an ancient book, its leather worn by time but still legible. Zelensky reached out and touched the book. The moment his fingers made contact with the cover, a wave of energy coursed through his body. He felt dizzy, as if the weight of centuries of history and secrets were being transmitted to him in a single second. He opened the book, and the pages were written in a language he didn't recognize, but something inside him told him that he understood. It was as if, somehow, he already knew what was there. As he turned the pages, he found a series of complex symbols and diagrams, with handwritten notes. some in a familiar language, others, however, impenetrable. But one word stood out, written clearly and directly on one of the pages: chosen. Zelensky felt his stomach tighten. What did this mean? He was the chosen one for what? The book seemed to know something about him, something he still didn't fully understand. He continued reading, his hands trembling, until he found something even more disturbing: a prophecy. The prophecy read, "When the chosen one arrives, the war will be just the beginning. The fate will be sealed and the world will be remade." Zelensky closed the book with a snap, his heart pounding. He knew he could no longer turn back. Whatever this meant, he was part of something bigger, something he couldn't control. And the world as he knew it was about to change forever. Zelensky felt the growing pressure, the weight of the words in the book still reverberating in his mind. He looked at the boy who was standing by the entrance of the church, watching him with a deep, unwavering gaze, as if he knew that this moment was about to define everything. "You saw what's written," said the boy with the same calmness, without moving. "Now you know what you need to do. The war is not your only battle." Zelensky, still in shock, looked at the closed book in his hands. The words, the prophecy. Everything seemed surreal. But he knew that what was happening was no coincidence. He was the chosen one, but chosen for what? And what more was behind this global conspiracy? "What does this mean?" he asked, his voice almost inaudible, as if trying to understand something impossible. The boy stepped forward, his expression enigmatic. "The war is just the veil that covers the real fight. What you're seeing now is not the end. You have a role to play in something much bigger, something that transcends the limits of your understanding." Zelensky looked out at the landscape, the desert of destruction and pain. He felt a deep connection to that moment, as if he were being guided by forces he couldn't control. But what was he about to do? How could he save his nation when the war seemed to be just part of a much larger picture, something mysterious and beyond his comprehension? "Who is behind this?" he asked, his voice now firmer, determined to understand. "Who is manipulating everything?" The boy looked at him with an enigmatic smile, his eyes so deep that they seemed to carry the weight of all the truth. "It's a much bigger network than you imagine. Those you think are your enemies are not the true enemies. They are just pieces on the board." Zelensky swallowed hard. What was the boy saying? He had already faced a brutal war, but now it seemed like he was being pulled into a much more complex conflict. He looked at the boy, who seemed to know exactly what was happening, as if everything had been predestined. The boy took another step forward and spoke in a softer voice, yet still full of power. "You have to go to the heart of destruction. What you're looking for is there. But remember, the truth might be harder to face than the war itself. Are you prepared for that?" Zelensky looked at him, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. Fate had brought him here to this moment, and he knew there was no turning back. He had no choice but to continue. The war, the politics, everything he knew until now, seemed to be just a piece of a much larger puzzle. He looked one last time at the book in his hands, feeling the weight of his responsibility increase. Then with a sigh he turned to the boy and said, "I will go. But tell me, what else is at stake here? What is really in danger?" The boy watched him for a long moment, his eyes deep and inscrutable. "The future. The future of all. The world is at a turning point and you have the power to change it. But the question is, will you choose the truth or the illusion?" Zelensky didn't know what to say. He knew he was facing a choice that would define not only the fate of Ukraine but the future of all humanity. What would he do? He was about to make a decision that would change the course of history. With one last look at the boy, he took a step forward and began to walk, his heart pounding with the intensity of doubt and responsibility. The path ahead was unknown, but one thing he knew: the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and the fate he thought he controlled was now in his hands. And there was no turning back. Zelensky looked at the boy, who was still there, beside the stone table, with a serene expression, as if he knew the moment of decision had arrived. The president felt that the weight of the world rested on his shoulders, but there was something more, something deeper pulling him. He bent down and, for the first time, saw the boy with different eyes. He wasn't just a child with mysterious words and prophecies. He was the symbol of everything that still remained of hope, of humanity, even amidst the devastation. The boy, with a shy smile, extended his hand to Zelensky as if waiting for that gesture. The president, with an almost involuntary movement, took his hand, feeling an instant connection. It was as if he had found what he was looking for, something beyond political struggles and war. It was the reminder of what life was meant to be, simple, yet profound. "You're not going to leave me here, are you?" the boy asked in a soft voice, but full of wisdom that transcended his age. Zelensky, with misty eyes, couldn't answer immediately. He didn't know how to express what he felt, how to articulate the immensity of the emotion flooding him. He looked at the boy and finally, his response came out as a sigh, filled with tenderness and unspoken promises. "No, I won't leave you here. You'll come back with me. You'll be with my family. We'll take care of you." The boy's smile widened, and for the first time, Zelensky saw something genuine and pure on his face, an expression of trust but also of relief, as if the weight of his mission had finally dissipated. The president carefully lifted him, as if afraid that this moment could slip through his hands at any instant. On the way out of the church, Zelensky felt that, by taking the boy to his home, he was not only fulfilling a promise. He was carrying with him the only thing that could restore what had been destroyed in his life and his country: faith in the future. The boy, with his silent wisdom, had become a vital part of his journey. He knew he couldn't leave him. The boy was the key to a greater truth. As they reached the helicopter, the biting morning wind surrounded them, but inside himself, Zelensky felt a peace he hadn't known in a long time. The boy was by his side, gazing at the destroyed world, but with eyes full of an unbeatable hope. When the president looked at him, the boy said with unsettling calm, "They will understand, President. They will understand that the truth is greater than any war. Peace begins within each one." Upon arriving at Zelensky's home, his wife and children greeted him with a warm embrace, not fully knowing what he had experienced. But when the boy entered, something in the atmosphere changed. The smile of his youngest son shone as he saw that enigmatic being. The boy approached and, with the same calmness he conveyed in every word, said, "I will help you. We all need each other. You will understand. I am the key, but together we will be the change." The words hung in the air for a long moment. The family looked at the boy, and something deep inside their hearts made them feel that, somehow, he was right. Their future, the president's, their nation's, was intertwined with that small being who was not there by chance. That night, while Zelensky looked at the gathered family, something seemed to have changed forever. It wasn't just the war he was trying to win. He now had an even greater mission: to restore hope, trust, unity. He knew that with the boy by his side, the impossible now seemed within reach. And while the boy peacefully slept in his home, Zelensky looked out the window at the starry sky, feeling more prepared than ever to face what was coming. What he didn't know was that, in that moment, the real change had already begun, and that the boy, with his eyes full of wisdom, had brought with him the promise of a new dawn. The war was still not over, but inside Zelensky, peace had begun. And with that peace, he knew that truth and hope would prevail, no matter how difficult the journey. Together, he and his family, the boy, and the people of Ukraine would face the future. Because, deep down, they knew that the true victory was not on the battlefields but in the hearts that opened to transformation. And so, the story of Zelensky and the boy became a symbol that even in the shadows of war, the light of hope can still shine, guiding those willing to find the path of truth and unity. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more exciting stories. See you next time.